First team on the tier list. Actually, do we want to go in this order? First team up is Arizona State, the team who won the Big 12 last year.
Also, okay, we're doing okay. So we're gonna go
I'm
team
just
by
going,
team. Bet.
Yeah, I'm
gonna put Arizona State in the A tier.
Okay.
I think that obviously coming off a Big 12 championship this year, I think there's good reason to believe that they are going to fall off just a tiny bit, assuming they obviously lose Cam Scatterbo to the NFL. Obviously, their quarterback is back. Jordan Tyson is back. They made some nice additions in the transfer portal defensively as well. But I can see this team. It's hard to go back-to-back in college football in terms of a conference as polarizing as this one is. So I think Arizona State will be good. Not necessarily S tier. I got them at A. What about you?
Completely agree. I think they're one of the biggest candidates to take a step back. I mean, Cam Scatterbo was their entire offense.
Facts.
They got a lot of pieces to work with still. Jordan Tyson coming back. Sam Levitt was impressive. But you have a target on your back now, too. It's going to be a little different this year than it was last year, as the gritty underdog, no one believed in us type of thing. And you go out and surprise damn near every team that you play against. Everyone's going to be ready to play you this year. So
yeah, that's the biggest thing too. Like you can kind of sneak up on people in 2024 when you're Arizona State, especially earlier in the year.
Yes.
You're not going to catch anybody by surprise in 2025. Teams are going to get up to play you, much like how Colorado is what has experienced these last couple years. We'll see how Coach Dillingham and the Sun Devils kind of handle that in here in 2025.
The Baylor Bears. Surprising season.
Yeah, I like Baylor.
6-3 in conference last year.
I got them C tier.
Okay.
No disrespect.
Sawyer
I think
Robinson
they're a good
coming
team.
back though. That doesn't do anything.
I
for
like
you?
Sawyer Robinson. Do we think he's going to be better than he was this year? Because he was really good this year.
He was.
And if he was better than he was last year, then he's probably an NFL quarterback. And I don't know. I don't know
either, but what I saw last year,
He was
especially
really
in the
good.
Colorado game,
He was really good.
It was eye-opening. 62% completion, over 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns to 8 interceptions.
It's pretty good. Dual threat. Can use his legs too. I like David Aranda a lot, especially as a defensive mind. They're going to be a good team. They're going to be right in the middle of that pack, around that 7-9 range of the Big 12, I say.
Okay.
So I like C.
We'll put them in C tier. I probably would have pushed for B tier, but I'll save my power for another team, I guess. Next up is BYU, the team that Colorado faced in the Alamo Bowl, took it to Colorado in the Alamo Bowl. Another surprise team. They were voted, somewhere 12th to 16th, down at the bottom of the Big 12. Really surprised a lot of guys or a lot of teams this year. 7-2 in conference. Retzloff is back. How do you feel?
S tier.
Ooh.
Coach Sataki, don't play around. He's got a quarterback. He's always going to have trenches handled both sides of the ball. Yeah, I think they're going to be, again, probably a preseason top 15, top 20 team. That home field advantage they have up there in Utah is crazy as well. So I think BYU is going to be really good again here in 2025. One of the best teams in the conference.
I mean, it was a slim margin, but they allowed the fewest points in the Big 12 last year, only 199. I mean, Colorado had 201, ASU had 200, so it's a tight group there. But Kalani Sitake is one of the best coaches in the country, bar none. We saw that on full display in the Alamo Bowl. You're absolutely right, S tier. Cincinnati's up next. I think Sorsby is back. They lose Corey Kiner, the running back. But they had some pieces. The tight end, I can't remember his name right now. He was a good player.
Yeah.
They gave Colorado a bit of a scare.
They did.
That was at home, too. How do you feel about Cincy?
I'm going to put them right next to Baylor. I think they're another kind of they're a good team, kind of right in the mix of that Big 12. Scott Satterfield really impressed me with the job he did here. I thought for sure Cincinnati would be a bottom 3, bottom 4 team in the Big 12 in 2024. They were not. They were a solid team. And again, like you said, they played Colorado really well in Boulder. So I like Scott Satterfield again, kind of, I believe this is year 3 for him.
I think so. You're right.
Kind of, again, building on the momentum. I like Cincy right here in the C tier.
They only went 5-7 last year. Overall. 3-6 in the Big 12, though. This is right, though. It's C tier. They're a team that I think could make a leap, but in terms of expectations and contenders right now, no, not there yet. Should we save the Buffs for last?
Sure.
So Houston, a frisky team, an interesting team, maybe a bit of a polarizing team in the Big 12. I could see them being voted to finish down near the bottom again. I could see a lot of people believing in what Willie Fritz did in his first year too.
Yeah.
And having them higher up in the contenders list. They're obviously not close to C tier, or I'm sorry, to S tier, to contending for the title yet. C tier also? B tier maybe?
You said frisky. First letter of frisky is F.
Wow.
That's where
You're
I'm
going
putting
to
them.
F tier.
And I like Connor Wigman, the quarterback transferring from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
He hasn't been super productive, but I think he has some talent. I just think that the Big 12, and Houston's going to hang around some games. They're going to steal one or two. But I think the Big 12 is too good, and I think they'll end up bottom 3 in the conference here, most likely again. Somebody's got to go in the F tier. Houston is going to be one of them for me.
That is true. Someone does have to go in the F tier. Put them in there. Let's take a look at the list so far. We got 5 teams up there, only 1 team in S tier, BYU, ASU in A tier, 2 teams in C tier, Baylor and Cincy, Houston in F tier. Harsh.
Somebody's got to be there.
Iowa State is up next.
That B tier is looking a little lonely. Let's stick Iowa State in there. Again, I think they have one of the best coaches in the conference, one of the best in college football, and Matt Campbell. They're losing quite a bit. Pretty much their whole offense, if I'm not mistaken, which was really good here in 2024.
Yeah, the receivers, I think, are gone. And,
Right.
But Rocco Becht is back.
Rocco Becht is
Not
back.
a great year this last year, but
No,
decent.
But I like him, and I think him without the weapons, we'll kind of get to see who he really is as a quarterback. But regardless, I think this is going to be a balanced team, well-coached team. I think Iowa State will contend, at least for most of the season, for a conference championship. I like them there in the B tier.
No, I like that spot too. I'd even maybe push for A bit just because they are who they are. They're just a feisty team that you just don't want to play. I don't think anyone ever really wants to play them. ASU really handled them well in the Big 12 title game. It's going to be a big game. I think this is in Boulder this year, Iowa State coming to town. So we'll see what happens here in a few months.
Definitely.
Kansas, the Jayhawks. Jalen Daniels is back. Devin Neal is gone.
And Jalen Daniels is already hurt again. If you
Yes,
hadn't
he
heard
is.
that.
Yeah. He had
I think he had off-season surgery
he
here
did,
recently.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
They said he'll be limited throughout spring and potentially the fall.
I mean,
So that's not ideal.
New year, same story.
100%. So with that being said, I'm going to stick Kansas right in that C tier next to our guys at Baylor and Cincinnati. They're going to be able to steal a couple games because they're going to be able to run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I do still think that they're relatively well coached by Lance Leipold, but they just don't necessarily scare me, especially if they have to go on the road and play a solid Big 12 team. So I think Kansas is C tier.
I mean, I can't remember where we put them when we did this last year, but I would say they were probably around B tier just because of the Jalen Daniels thing. But we saw firsthand, Devin Neal was their offense this year. When you have to ask Jalen Daniels to throw the ball 25 to 30 times a game, it ain't going to work.
Not going to go well for you.
B tier.
They're losing their top 2 corners, too.
That is true. I forgot about that. Kobe
Yeah.
Bryant and Mello Dotson moving on.
Right.
B tier. Yeah.
You putting in B?
Or I'm sorry, C tier. C
I
tier.
was
C
gonna
tier.
say.
I apologize. K-State. I mean, Avery Johnson's back. Dylan Edwards with the bowl game for the ages.
Yeah.
And it's K-State. I mean, S tier has to be, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This team is really good, man. Well coached. And I think you mentioned that bowl game a lot of times can either propel you into the next season
Yes, it
or
can.
kind of be an omen for the next season of things not going well. But Kansas State, particularly offensively, led by Dylan Edwards, I think that could be a catalyst for how they look potentially in 2025. Again, another year under Avery Johnson's belt, because that's kind of been the biggest knock on him these last 2 seasons, or at least this season 2024. He's just so young. With him and the full year of experience of just starting under his belt, I think Kansas State, again, I probably will enter the year preseason top 20. They'll have a chance to win the Big 12 for sure this year, and I can't wait for that matchup, Colorado versus Kansas State, that rematch.
Their leading receiver, Jace Brown, is also back. I mean,
He's a demon, bro. I like him a lot.
He's good. They're just one of the most well-coached, well-rounded teams in the conference. I mean, they're going to be up here as long as they keep bringing in this talent, and Chris Kleiman's the coach.
Definitely.
All righty. Oklahoma State, the Cowboys. I mean, voted. I think they had multiple first place votes. Up there as the top team preseason last year.
100%.
And maybe the most disappointing team, maybe besides Florida State, maybe besides them, the most disappointing team in all of college football last season.
It's fair, bro. And when you go into 2025, what do you point at for optimism?
There are questions all over the place.
You can say we still got our coach back, but even then,
you lose Ollie Gordon. Your 18th year quarterback is finally hitting the retirement home.
Yeah.
Defensively, they were just a pushover against Colorado, at least.
Most of the season.
Most of the season. The BYU game, wasn't that a 45-42 game or something?
I think when we talked about it going into that Oklahoma State game, they had given up like 35-plus points in like
that's right,
crazy amount of games. So
this has to be F tier.
They're F tier. Again, there's no really tangible reason to point to them being a lot better than they were in 2024. So, yeah, they got to be down there.
We might have to actually make a new tier for them because, good Lord. TCU, a team that has recruited really, really well under Sonny Dykes. Josh Hoover is back, I believe, at quarterback. Josh Beck, or what's his name? Beck, the wide receiver? I can't remember his first name.
I think it's Jack.
Jack Besh. Getting a lot of NFL draft buzz right now.
He looks like he might be a player.
He impressed me throughout the season.
No, he did, for sure. They he had two really good receivers. Him and Savion, I believe, last name Williams.
Yeah, Savion Williams, too. I like him a lot.
So they had an explosive offense. The quarterback is back, correct?
Yep.
I think TCU is they're gonna score points. They're gonna be in the thick of things. I like them similar. I wouldn't mind a B tier, but I would put them C tier. I think they're just like those other teams in that C tier where any given Saturday, they could probably beat you, but not many people are probably going to pick them to finish top 3 in the conference, let alone win the conference. So I would put TCU C. They're a frisky team for sure.
I'm going to overrule you here. We're putting them in B tier.
Fair enough.
Because just look at how they've recruited. They've been the best recruiting Big 12 team over the last few years.
You're right, bro.
They have the number 1 class in the Big 12 coming into, or this 2025 recruiting class. It's already on campus. They've been building, and you might be saying, they had a disappointing year last year. They went 9-4. They finished 6-3 in the conference.
Wow.
B tier.
Yeah. It's impressive, and they're well coached too. Sonny don't play.
Texas Tech, this is a very interesting one. One of the most high-profile transfer classes in the country. They dropped a ton of money. There's like a feature on ESPN right now talking about how the GM in Texas Tech kind of pulled this off. So I'm going to dig into that later. But a very talented team. Taj Brooks is out. Bear Morton is back, though.
Yeah.
Micah Hudson, their 5-star is gone. But they, again, bring in one of top transfer classes in the country. Are they better this year?
I think so, bro.
A tier?
I think so. I like that their quarterback's back. That's always a feather in their cap, especially when he's played a lot of football. And they were just a good team this year. You know what I'm saying? Better defensively than I think people give them credit for. Their head coach, Joey McGuire, has done a really good job recruiting. And you can tell that he was a former high school coach because he's really been hitting the recruiting trail hard. And they've gone crazy in the transfer portal, too, since the season ended, which is kind of what you've alluded to. So I think Texas Tech, and obviously they have a raucous home field advantage as well. So Texas Tech is, I think, going to surprise some people and be even better than they were in 2024.
Yep, that's the spot. Questions to answer, kind of similar to Colorado the last few years. How does all these transfer portal guys fit together? Can they, get the ball rolling early on? But the talent's undeniable. They're going to be one of the best teams in the conference this upcoming season. UCF, Scott Frost, he's back. Crazy. That's about all I can say about this team.
Frost.
That's all Frost for F?
What is the first? Wait, what?
Frost for F?
Yes, that's exactly where I was going. Thank you.
Honestly, what can you tell me? Say one good thing about UCF.
I couldn't. The good players are gone. Their good players are no longer there. They have a new head coach who's coached there before. We'll see what happens.
A lot of questions to answer. They are definitely in the F tier. Barely any expectations, I think, for them coming into this season. Arizona, another team, just a train wreck this year. I don't think it's gotten better either. You kept Fafita.
Yeah.
But you lost everything else. T-Mac's gone to the NFL.
Yeah.
What do they have?
I had him F tier on my list here, but I'm going to give him C tier just because of Noah Fafita. I still have respect for him. I think he's going to bounce back. This past season seems so uncharacteristic of him. I think he's going to bounce back, even without his guy T-Mac. I think just that alone is going to help them win a couple games that people probably think that they won't. And I just can't. There's a commonality on that bottom row on that F tier of quarterback play.
That is true. That is true.
What I'm saying? I don't think Noah Fafita belongs on that tier. So because of him, I'm going to give Arizona that C tier.
You're absolutely right. The quarterback alone, but man, I just worry that this team is going to be at a major talent deficit again this year. And honestly, they might have a major coaching deficit.
That's where I was going to go. I mean, if this season looks anything like it did last year, Brennan will be out of there. Maybe before the season ends.
We'll see, man. I mean, they were already clamoring for it this year.
I know.
All right, we'll do Utah, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll rank Colorado and West Virginia. Utah, I mean, Kyle Whittingham, maybe the last ride. Devin Dampier, quarterback. They take the OC from New Mexico as well. And this is the type of quarterback that Utah just thrives with. This athletic dual threat guy. I mean, remember Tyler, right? Tyler Huntley?
Utah quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Tyler, yeah.
Yeah. Snoop.
Yeah. He was running around making a ton of plays, and I don't even know if he was close to the best one they've had recently. I mean, Cam Rising, he was at his prime. They're beating Ohio State in Rose Bowls. What do you have Utah?
I got Utah in that A tier, right next to Arizona State and Texas Tech. I think 2024 was just a bit of a down year, an uncharacteristic year for them. And obviously you can point to the reason why. They had issues at quarterback. Yep. And what do? They go out and address the quarterback situation by adding who I thought, aside from maybe Caden Salter, was the best transfer quarterback out there, and, Devin Dampier. And I know there are going to be a lot of opinions about that, but Devin Dampier to me is electricity in a bottle, a true dual threat, can make plays with his legs, can put the ball pretty much wherever he wants to. He's just a playmaker at quarterback, and seems like a while since Utah's had that, because that's definitely not Cam Rising's game. He's more of a point guard, distributor. But Devin Dampier is going to create electricity. He's going to make Utah fun to watch again. And Kyle Whittingham coaching them, which could potentially be his last year as a Utes head coach. They're going to be good in the trenches. They're going to be good defensively as well. So I think Utah with Devin Dampier leading the way, they're going to be a really good team. I like them A tier.
Yeah, I think they're A tier as well. I mean, honestly, it might just be coaching for me.
Yeah.
When Kyle Whittingham actually has talent to work with and actually has a quarterback to operate the offense,
facts.
They're just going to be a tough out, and they're going to be in the conversation. Obviously disappointing this year, but tier list. C tier at the top, A tier, B tier, C tier, then F tier. We're on 15 out of 16. 2 S tier teams: BYU, K-State. A tier: ASU, Texas Tech, and Utah. Everyone else kind of falls in under them. West Virginia. Rich Rod's back?
Yes.
This conference is crazy.
The Fighting Pac-Man Joneses.
They were ferocious in the run game last year. They had some moments where they really put up some points and put up some rushing yards. Oh,
King
was that
Mars
Wayne?
Yeah.
Sorry, King Mars. Collateral damage, my bad. Wayne, you got to tell me, bro.
Facts.
What do you have to say about West Virginia?
Bro, I don't know what to make of West Virginia. I'm not going to lie. I'm not even going to sit up
C-tier?
here and act like I know what West Virginia got going on here in 2025. I don't. But, yeah, sure. C tier, that sounds about right to me.
Oh, my gosh, Sharif. Put him in C tier. Alrighty. The final team on the tier list, your Colorado Buffaloes. A lot to be said. Losing their best 2 players, obviously. But the best offensive lineman in the conference is going to be wearing black and gold. You have arguably the most talented quarterback room in the conference.
Yeah.
We'll see how the competition shakes out here. S tier, though. Do we have enough? We've got this defensive line. We got Coach Liv still in the fold.
Yeah.
We got a talented secondary. Transfer class is popping. Recruits coming in looking ready to contribute as well.
Yeah.
Is this a Big 12 contender?
Right after this season, I probably would have had these boys A tier, but I think 2 things in particular have me having Colorado S tier. One is what they've done in this 2025 recruiting class with these freshmen. We know Coach Prime plays freshmen, and I think there are at least 3 to 4 guys in this freshman class who will make immediate impacts as freshmen, particularly potentially on the trenches, offensive line or defensive line. And then also, too, the addition of Marshall Faulk.
Right.
I think also boosts them into the S tier because if you look at Colorado, their biggest weakness is probably the running game.
Yep.
There was non-existent these last 2 seasons. I don't think that will be the case with Marshall Faulk coaching that running back room. We expect them to be more balanced than they were in 2024. We expect them to have a different dimension at quarterback with Caden Salter using his legs. And we just talked about it. I think this defensive line will lead the Big 12 in sacks again. I think this secondary has a chance to be very good, really, really good again, even with losing Cam Summan Craig and Travis Hunter and Shiloh Sanders. So I think Colorado at this point, I'm comfortable putting them next to those teams that we have already listed in the S tier. BYU, Kansas State. I think those at this point are the 3 best teams in the Big 12 as we sit here February 11th.
I'm close. I'm not all the way there. If I had to put them in S tier, but if there was if they could just be on the line, right on A S tier,
sure,
that's where I would put Colorado because there are still some questions to answer. You got to run the ball better.
Yes.
Who's going to take the reins in that backfield? Who's going to be the quarterback? So a lot of new transfer pieces at big spots as well. Joseph Williams, is he going to come in and be as impactful as someone like a Zay Weaver, someone like a LeJontay Wester or Will Shepard? If he does, then absolutely this receiving core is where it was the last 2 seasons, I think. Maybe a little bit less because you don't have Travis, but
yeah,
secondary is up there. I do think the offensive line and the defensive line got better. I would just put them on that border, though. Not quite there yet.
For sure, man. I can just see a path where this team is defensive-led, where this team has one of the best defenses in the conference in college football, and that's how they make their hay. Getting after the quarterback, we saw it. If they can figure out the trenches, and I think they already have done that defensively, but with some of these guys, the transfer guys that we've talked about, on the offensive line, guys from, Illinois, Texas A&M, Louisiana Tech, I think, again, if they can just figure out balance offensively, and Caden Salter gives them something different with his legs, we already expect the receiving core to be, again, one of the best in college football.
Yeah.
Omari Miller, Jalen Miller are going to break out. Joseph Williams, I think, is going to open up some eyes in the college football world. This team has a lot going for them. And, again, the coaching staff as well. Robert Livingston in year 2.
Best defensive coordinator in the conference?
100%. No doubt. So there's a lot going for the Buffs. At this point, I think they're S tier. And there's only 3 teams to be specific, I think, that deserve that, kind of billing at this point.
Can you put the list up one more time, Dion, please? Just recapping the list before we move on here. Ranking the 2025 Big 12 contenders. We'll do this after the spring as well. This is obviously pre-spring rankings. S tier, BYU, K-State, and Colorado. A tier, Arizona State, Texas Tech, and Utah. B tier, Iowa State and TCU. C tier, Baylor, Cincy, Kansas, Arizona, West Virginia. And F tier, you got a lot to work on, Houston, Oklahoma State, and UCF.
I think that's balanced too, bro. And I feel like it's typically how it works. There's typically 2 to 4 teams who actually have a chance to win it. And then there's a pack of 5 to 6 teams in that next tier. And then everybody else pretty much. So
if I had to make one change, I think I'd just move Baylor a little higher up. I do think they're better than those teams in that tier. They at least have a quarterback compared to, Cincy, West Virginia. Shoot, even throw Kansas in there. I'll take Sawyer Robertson over Jalen Daniels.
I respect that. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all.
There you go.